everybody. Welcome to our live today with our team dietitian, Kaylee, who I'm sure will be joining us very shortly, all about the 3 key ways that we can boost gut health with endometriosis. So I will just wait for a few of you to join us and then also get started with Kay soon. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Incredible. Here she is. Hello. Yes, let me know where you're tuning in from. That would be incredible.
Hello.
Morning. Hello. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
You too. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, audio and visuals. Check.
Half my head is cut off, but that'll do.
Okay. So I'm excited to be talking a bit about the key ways that we can boost gut health with endometriosis. But before we get into that, can you maybe reintroduce yourself a little bit for those who are new or haven't tuned into one of our live trainings before?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Kay. I am one of the dietitians here at the Dietologist, and it's coming up to my 3-year Dietologist anniversary. So, so I've been here for a long time. Some of you may recognize me. Some of you that are new here might not. But basically, one of the dietologists here, and one of my favorite areas to work in is endometriosis, specifically gut health, and really those symptoms that come along with gut health. So think constipation, diarrhea, both, pain, endobelly, so a lot of those kind of symptoms of endometriosis that may not necessarily be that typical cramping pain that you get in and around your but kind of all throughout the month, some of those gut symptoms. So then some areas of interest are also pregnancy and postpartum nutrition, specifically hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, so something like preeclampsia, if you've heard of it, and thyroid health as well. What are some of my other areas? And obviously fertility nutrition. So we do everything related to women's health around here. But yeah, some of my favorite areas to work in are endometriosis and gut health, and also hypothalamic amenorrhea. I always forget that one. So
you see a lot of that. I don't know how you forget.
I always forget to mention it.
Well, it's also ironic because their period has forgotten to come to the party. So it's kind of funny that you forget that one.
I know. It's fitting. It's very fitting.
Yeah, it is. So you mentioned briefly that endometriosis can commonly co-occur with symptoms of bloating, constipation, diarrhea, sometimes nausea, that painful abdominal distension or endobelly as it's commonly referred to. And that subset of symptoms is often not really paid attention to very much from a medical standpoint. We're typically looking at more pain, but those symptoms can have such an impact on your quality of life, your daily life. And in addition, we also know how highly likely you're also to have a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome or IBS as well. But besides that, why else should people be thinking, like say you're one of those people that don't have any gut symptoms with endometriosis, should you still be paying attention to your gut health?
Yeah, and yes, definitely. And we have some really, really interesting and emerging research that's kind of coming to the forefront, I'd say within the last 5 to 10 years. And it's all about really your gut microbiome. And I think we pay a lot of attention nowadays to that gut-brain axis, but we're not really paying much attention to the gut hormone axis either. And other, I guess, things that come with endometriosis and your gut microbiome. So some of the things that we're actually seeing is that people diagnosed with endometriosis have different, I guess, species of microbiome or bacteria in their digestive system and in their body. So we see more gram-negative species. We see fewer good bacteria, so fewer lactobacillus species. And this can have an impact on our immune system as well, obviously our gut health, but then it can also have an impact on the inflammatory response. And, you know, endometriosis is an inflammatory condition, even if we're not necessarily getting these gut symptoms, or we have silent endo where you're not getting any symptoms, which can happen as well. There's still things going on in the body that's kind of driving the growth of the endometriosis. So we want to be paying attention to our gut health, even if we're not getting those typical gut symptoms or any symptoms at all.
Yeah. I think you make such a great point, because I think silent endometriosis, you know, until perhaps you do hit a symptom profile, and in our practice, a lot of the time that is fertility, until you hit kind of a road bump that your endometriosis is kind of blocking you from whatever's next for you, people don't address it, whether it be lifestyle or pelvic physio or medically or otherwise. And I think it's really important that we switch up the conversation and actually try and get people to proactively focus on their health and well-being more generally speaking, because we are learning these links between the gut microbiome and endometriosis. And it may not be the cause or the cure or the anything, but it's interesting nonetheless, and improving that is definitely going to have some kind of potential benefit, and certainly limited harm. And it's interesting too, I know it's beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, which we're about to jump into, but that change in the type of bacteria in the gut microbiome actually extends to the reproductive tract microbiome. So the reproductive tract being the vagina, the cervix, and the uterine microbiome, that is distinctly different in people with endometriosis. So it's really fascinating, and I think we're going to see a lot more research and development in this area in the next decade or so, and maybe it's an opportunity for us to target diagnostics or to target treatments. We don't know yet, but it's certainly really interesting. All right, let's get into it. What is the first way that people can boost their gut health with endo from a nutrition or dietitian perspective?
Yeah, so I'll give you basically 3 simple tips that we can incorporate. My first tip is basically to really focus in on making sure you're getting enough fiber in your diet and making sure you're getting enough water in your diet. On the waterfront, something that is so overlooked, especially when it comes to things like endometriosis and our gut health. You know, we think a lot about water and we're like, oh, it'll make my skin look good, it'll, you know, but really, drink more water is so, you know, and you hear a lot of the things, aim for your 2 liters per day, but really try your best. One of my best tips for my clients is to get a water bottle. So make sure it's a non-disposable water bottle, no plastic. So something like a stainless steel or a glass, exactly like that one. I've got my Frank Green. So something like that. I personally really like to have a straw, because I find if I have a straw, it's gonna sit next to me and I'm just gonna be sipping on it while I'm working. It's kind of that mental, we don't have to screw it open. So that's, get a water bottle with a straw, and one that is not. And also on the fiber front is that we have different types of fiber, and I think a lot of the time we just focus on, we think of fiber and we think of, okay, whole grain bread or whole grain grains, but we have so many different types of fiber. We have insoluble fiber, we have soluble fiber, we have resistant starch, we have prebiotic fiber, which I'm going to talk about my next tip. So we really want to make sure we're getting enough fiber in our diet, and that does look different for everyone, but we try for around the 25 to 30 grams of fiber in our diet. And basically the foods that you're going to get that from is, yes, your whole grains. So if you're picking a bread or you're picking a pasta, you're picking rice, try and make sure that you go for the grainiest option that you can find. So for example, brown rice will be better than white rice. Your grainy bread, so think of a whole grain. And I think a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between multigrain and wholemeal and whole grain? Basically, whole grain is wholemeal and multigrain combined. So brown grains. That's what you want to go for. If possible, possible. So making sure you're getting that, and also a range of fruit and vegetables in your diet as well. The more colorful your diet is, the better, because it means you're going to be getting a whole variety. And a tip I give for this is don't peel your fruit and veg, if possible. I mean, you're not going to eat avocado skin, but things that you can eat them. For example, carrot skin, potato skin. Don't peel it. Obviously, wash it really, really well. Give it a really good scrub. But don't peel these things, because a lot of the fiber lies within the skin. When we peel them, we're really pulling away a lot of that fiber.
Yeah.
That's my first tip. Focus on your fiber, focus on your water. Technically 2 tips, but...
Yeah, but they go hand in hand, because if you up the fiber and you don't up the water, SHIT really will hit the fan. Like, things will get stuck. It's not a good time.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think people really overdo the soluble fiber. They put like chia seeds onto everything, psyllium husk everywhere, and then there's not enough water. So what does that do? It forms a gel in the gut, and then it slows everything right down. Now, that might work really well if you've got diarrhea, for example. But if you're constipated, it can be not a good time. So it's not just about total fiber. Total fiber is important, but fiber type based on your symptom profile is also really important as well.
And I kind of like to think about water and fiber like concrete. And this sounds a bit odd, but basically,
I love an analogy.
Water, you're getting dry concrete. That's going stuck. But fiber, with a lot of water, it's going to be flowing. It's going to be moving. And we want to make sure it's flowing. We want to make sure it's moving. And yes, it really does depend on your symptom profile as to how much fiber, how much water. And obviously that's where a dietitian is very, very helpful in helping you navigate what that looks like.
Yeah.
My tip is to really focus on prebiotic fiber. Probiotics are different. And I think we hear a lot about probiotics, have more probiotics. And I will talk about that next. But we seem to kind of overlook prebiotic fiber. And give it, because we love analogies at the Dietologist. Basically, fiber is like the fertilizer for the seeds. Without the fertilizer, nothing's going to happen. Those seeds are not going to grow and flourish. So basically what prebiotic fiber is it feeds our gut bacteria. So we have really good and I guess a good healthy amount of gut bacteria and different species. We want to make sure we're focusing on prebiotic fiber. Now, with endometriosis, it can be quite difficult with the prebiotic fiber because a lot of our prebiotic fiber are FODMAPs, quite high. So it's really about navigating, again, your symptom profile. So we've got things like melon, watermelon, we've got things like our garlic, our onions, spring onions. Those are the types of foods that are quite rich in prebiotic fiber. So again, if you're sensitive to those, it's really important to work with a dietitian to say, okay, I want to make sure I'm feeding my good bacteria with my prebiotic rich fiber, but let's find what we're sensitive to and then let's work from there. So so really important, but you know, we need to make sure that we're not irritating the system even more. And of course comfort is important, but I think that's such a valid point and something that I spoke about in a live earlier this week about not being on a low FODMAP diet for forever, like moving through the phases and getting to understanding your tolerances and intolerances. And we won't go into detail about it because we have a pretty comprehensive podcast Kay and I did on the low FODMAP diet and endometriosis, which you can listen to in our back catalogue. But the importance of moving through that is so important so that you can reintroduce at least some kinds of prebiotic fiber, because nobody is intolerant. Almost nobody is intolerant to every single type of FODMAP. You're going to be able to tolerate some groups better than others at varying amounts, and it's all about trying to max that out so that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot from a gut health perspective, from a long-term health and well-being of the gut microbiome. We want you to be comfortable, but we also want to optimize that gut microbiome element as well. So it's always a bit of a tightrope situation. Awesome. Okay, and what's your third tip for boosting gut health with endometriosis? My third tip, which I guess I said I would mention, is the probiotics. So yes, we want to focus on the prebiotics, but we also want to focus on the probiotics. And the
Yeah.
probiotics in this situation are like the seeds. So we've got our prebiotic fiber, which is fertilizer, and then we've got our seeds, which is our probiotics. And that doesn't only mean taking a probiotic, because also there's very different probiotics. We don't want to just be taking one willy-nilly. Like we said, people with endometriosis have different, I guess, ratios of species. So we need, you are going to take that, you take the right one for you, and I'm not going to get into that, but we really want to focus on probiotic-rich foods. So when we think about rich foods, a lot of us know that yogurt is a probiotic rich food, and if you don't eat dairy for whatever reason, there are different types of yogurts that we can also focus on. So important to make sure that yes, we're getting these foods in our diet no matter what dietary restrictions are. So we've got our yogurt and kefir or kefir. Everyone pronounces it differently, so I'm not.
Says that differently, I know. I say kefir, but a lot of people say kefir. I don't know.
I don't know.
Somebody needs to just like come in and then just say what it is. Like when the quinoa situation happened like a million years ago. Quinoa, what are we saying?
Oh, that's saying. Am I saying that again? I don't know. Kefir. And then also types of probiotic rich foods. So we've got our fermented foods. Think of your kimchi, your sauerkraut. Again, difficult with endometriosis because sometimes we might be intolerant to a couple of these types of things. So it's really important to figure out what works for you with your dietitian, and then, you know, liberalize your diet like that. And then we've also probiotic rich drinks. So think of something like a kombucha, but again, there's very different types of kombucha. Some actually have the proper SCOBY in it and some don't, so it's important to find something that is kind of the real.
Absolutely. And little and often with fermented foods is better than, you know, binge eating your probiotic rich foods on the weekend or something like that. So this research seems to show that even if the bacteria don't survive the acid bath that is your stomach, that even if it comes down to your large intestine and the cells are already dead, that there could be still some benefit, which sounds really weird, but there is potentially some benefit there with the dead cells and organic acids and so on. But even better if you can find a product that has the bacteria encapsulated in something that will be acid resistant. So you've got a greater chance of it kind of landing in the large intestine as well. And we help with product selection in that regard as well. Incredible. So our 3 tips for gut health with endometriosis were: pay attention to fluid and fiber in terms of the types and how much is right for you based on your unique symptom profile. Prioritize prebiotic fibers. That can be tricky if you do have some gut sensitivities and intolerances, particularly FODMAP. So working with the dietitian there is really important for long-term management. And tip number 3 is trying to focus on probiotic-rich foods as well. So those were the 3 ways to boost gut health with endometriosis. So if people want help with their endometriosis symptom management, whether it be gut health, pain, fertility, or otherwise, what should they do?
Yeah, so we've actually just launched our newest type of consultation, which is our Endo Empower consult. And basically this is a 2-hour consult, so a nice and long consult where we will talk about a supplementation plan. We will talk about basically anything you want to know in terms of endo. So we might focus on a bunch of different things. So you might think about health, we might talk about kind of symptom profile and pain and anti-inflammatory eating. So it's a really good way to get a very kind of comprehensive plan, and then to go on your own, be independent, and when you need more support, come back. And consultation really because we found that a lot of you wanted kind of a dump of information from, I guess, evidence-based source, and we're really confused about a lot of the things that you were reading online. So that's why we to basically give you an opportunity to ask all of your questions, get a really good plan, and then to be independent from there. And with that consultation, you also get access to our anti-inflammatory eating masterclass. So that's a masterclass by Steph.
You get a master pass to the masterclass.
Hey! And yes, that masterclass is a really, really good way to get a good idea of what anti-inflammatory eating looks like from a sustainable point of view. Again, you read a lot about things that are unsustainable. So yeah, and really in that consultation, we make sure that you have a plan that you can really stick to and that's going to fit within your lifestyle and within your symptom profile. And I think that's the most beneficial part of getting one-on-one advice, is that get a plan that actually works for you. Because what I do might not work for you. What Mrs. Smith does might not work for you. And that's okay as well.
Yeah.
So that's really the best way to move forward with your endometriosis, because this is a condition that is not going to go away. It's called
sadly
condition.
Okay.
Yeah. Sucks.
Yeah.
Maybe with modern science one day, but right now it's not going to go away. So we really want to make sure that we're living life to the fullest with this condition, and your diet plays a huge part. And yeah, we'll be showing us now that it does, and that we need to focus more on diet and more on your lifestyle. So yes, you can hop onto our website and book that one in. It's called the Endo Empower consultation, and you can see myself, Steph, or Candice. So make sure to do that. We have limited spots for that for the rest of the year. So yeah, it's pretty much September. It's September.
Yeah. It's September now. It's almost September. Get on it.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any spots left for September now, so it would be October with me at the moment. And yes, Kaylee I think has a few spots for September. So yes, don't delay, because you know you might see some benefits right away with changing your diet and lifestyle, but typically we see a lag time of a few months before you start to see significant benefits. And so if it's already almost September, if you want to start feeling better before the end of the year and into the new year, then now is the time to get started. Now, I did have a question that came through, which were, what are some of your favorite gut health books? And I just so happen to have some of them here, so I thought I would show them. They're by Dr. Megan Rossi, who's also known as the Gut Doctor. And she has 2 books about gut health, which are half kind of like the best textbooks you'll ever read about gut health that are way more fun, and also recipes. So her first book is Eat Yourself Healthy, and her second book is Eat More, Live Well. So if you want to read more about gut health, or just get more inspo, there's also that. So if you're a book person, there's that as well for you. Gosh, they're heavy.
As well, so highly recommend. She's also an accredited practicing dietitian.
Yes.
So
she now lives in the UK, which is pretty cool. But yes, she's definitely like the kind of leading expert in the field with gut health, but it's not necessarily specific to endometriosis. And I absolutely love her books and her advice, but they're very much, I would say, kind of once you get to a point of liberalisation situation, rather than from the jump. For a lot of people, it would be really hard, I would imagine, to eat some of these recipes if you're in that state where you don't really know what's bothering you. So love her books, and love her page. So definitely check that out as well. And yes, I will post these to the stories as requested. All right, everyone. Thanks so much, Kay, for joining us for this little live training. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we will see you soon with another one.
sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.